Awesome.
So now, if you would please read the article from the beginning, because apparently nobody could hear
All right.
anything, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Yes. Um. Well, one sec. I need to. Are we live right now?
Yeah, we're live. Or at least I think we're live. We should be
Let
live.
me let's check. Yep, we are. All right. Starting from the top.
Started from the bottom, now we're here.
Yes, as Drake says.
Uh-huh.
In the seventh lecture of Hillsdale, I'm still going to butcher the name, by the way, college's course on the histories of Athens and Sparta, which you can, okay. Victor Davis Hanson, a history fellow at Hillsdale College, explains how the Peloponnesian War brought Athens' golden age to an end. To understand why the Greek city-states fought amongst one another to the brink of imploding, one must turn to Thucydides,
Thucydides.
Thucydides,
Thucydides, yes.
Okay, gosh, Thucydides account of the war to understand the causes of the context of the conflict. Thucydides, a Greek historian who lived through and chronicled the Peloponnesian War as an Athenian general, developed the idea of the 27-year-long period of intermittent conflicts and battles between the two city-states as being a singular war. How the Peloponnesian War began. After the defeat of invading Persians, tensions between Athens and Sparta, which were allied during the Persian Wars, began to escalate. Both Sparta and Athens sought to shore up their superiority and might by gaining alliances with other smaller cities within Greece. Megaris, a city-state which was historically aligned with Athens, appealed to the Spartans after the Athenians prohibited them from trading with Athenian ships as punishment for refusing to listen to Athenian dictates. Several other Athenian-aligned cities broke from Athens during this time, weakening their position in Attica. In 431 BC, the Spartans assembled an army of 60,000 hoplites to pillage and plunder Athens. They surrounded the field and destroyed some grain and orchard for 30 days. While the Athenians were fortified within the walls of the city, the Spartan soldiers eventually went home and the Athenians survived thanks to their fortifications in the 5-mile-long walls to a nearby port city of Paro. Exhausted after numerous battles and raids on each city, Sparta and Athens brokered a peace treaty in 421 BC, but this would last for only 6 years. All throughout this period of peace, there was a cold war between the two cities. Both cities tried to expand their influence and gain allies from nearby cities. Unless you defeat and humiliate the enemy and force him to accept your political premises and change his ideology and mentality and constitution, then all you're doing when you stop fighting is giving a breathing space to go at it in the next round, Hansen said. Athens overextends itself. During this time, the Athenians decided to invade Sicily, a costly mistake that would spur the Spartans to pounce on the Athenians while their military forces were overextended and underprepared for the planned invasion. Athenian generals, oh god, do you know how to pronounce that? Alcibiades.
I'm sorry.
Athenian.
Alcibiades.
Alcibiades.
Alcibiades, yes.
Alcibiades. Okay. Alcibiades. Okay. Who was a proponent of the Sicilian invasion, turned against his own people after they planned to sentence him to death for heresy. He revealed the plans of Athens' grand strategy to the Spartans and helped them lead invasions against his own people to save himself from a death sentence. When the Athenians finally realized that they could not successfully invade Sicily, the troops fled home, but during their return many died from disease and lack of food and water. This failed invasion pushed the Sicilians into the waiting arms of the Spartans, who formed an alliance against Athens. And the Persians, seeing the Athenians in their weakened state, decided to help the Spartans by building them a fleet of ships. Sparta, which has historically been a land power and without an abundance of maritime war vessels, is emboldened militarily like it had never been before. But its efforts to build a navy from scratch with imported vessels crewed by rowers who were not native Spartans was not as effective as a nationalized long-standing navy like the ones Athens had. The Spartans were overconfident in their newfound naval forces, which were not up to par with the Athenians. The Athenians, who were threatened by the Spartans' fleet, destroyed their ships, but this prompted the Persians to assist the Spartans in building a new fleet. During this time, the Athenians, being extremely fickle, decided to bring Alcibiades back, despite their earlier attempts to kill him. After their fleet is destroyed again, the Spartans ask the Athenians for peace, which the Athenians spurn. The Athenian assembly also decide to execute all the Spartan political prisoners, which angers the Spartans and decide to exile Alcibiades. When he's in exile, he tries to warn the Athenians that their fleet is vulnerable to Spartan attack, but they pay him no mind, and the Spartans catch and destroy the entire Athenian fleet. With the destruction of the fleet, the city crumbles. Athens' democratic government implodes, and Sparta destroys their city's fortifications and the long walls which once protected the road from Athens to Peroe. At this point, the long conflict comes to a close, and with the end of the Peloponnesian War comes the end of Athens' golden age, but not the end of Athens altogether. All throughout the Peloponnesian War, the political instabilities within Athens caused the Athenians to make bad decisions which would ultimately cost the city its position as the greatest in Greece. The Athenian Assembly's decision to execute Alcibiades and then bring him back, then exile him, is one example of how their fickleness led to their own demise. Though Athens suffered great loss throughout its drawn-out conflict with Sparta, the city would rise once again from total defeat and make a comeback. And that is the whole article.
So, don't be stupid, don't spread yourself too thin, and don't be indecisive.
Yeah. That's one thing I hate to freaking bring StarCraft back into this. But this one thing I noticed, really good pro players. And I do this just because analogies are really, I think, always good examples of concepts. But
And StarCraft is something you're familiar with.
yes, exactly. They're, even if they make a bad decision, they're very decisive about it. And like they win, like the decisive player usually has an edge over the player who does like moving their army but doesn't know where to go with it, and kind of like, should I defend or should I attack? And decisiveness is like kind of a sign of confidence, I feel like, and those players do they just do really well. And even if the decision is not that great, they do it really full force, and they do their best with that decision, and they don't second guess it. And they play in that, like, they win. Those sorts of people win more often than not. So yeah, in anything, I mean, and obviously there's sort of stipulations on this, like when it's a huge decision for your life, you don't just like, all right, roll the dice and go with it, and then I'll make it work. Like, no. Obviously, since StarCraft is an RTS, you have a lot more decisions coming at you, so you're going to be forced to decide more often than in real life when you have usually a little bit of time to make your decision. But you should stick to the decision you make generally, unless you find some fault that you previously weren't aware of.
Yeah, and then if it's not something that goes and affects your course on a huge scale, well, then you keep the course. But if it's something that and make minor adjustments, but if it's something that actually would derail you, then yeah, be ready to change.
But your changes should be decisive too. They should be like, okay, I'm not doing that anymore because of this.
And you don't need to overreact either.
Nope.
You react proportionate to the change that you're seeing, or to the reaction that you're seeing.
Yeah, exactly.
And by reaction that you're seeing, I mean, like, let's say you're flying an airplane, and you want to level out at 4,000 feet, and you see your altimeter slowly going up from 4,000 feet. What do you do? Well, you can power back just a little bit, and that'll be it.
Yeah.
Or a little bit of down trim. that'd be it. What you don't do is just jam the stick in the foot. I'm a foot above 4,000. No, you don't. Yeah, then you wind up doing this kind of a thing instead of keeping the nice steady thing and making gentle corrections. It was like driving.
Right.
If you start drifting toward the center line, do you immediately? Oh, I'm drifting to the center. No, you don't do that.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, exactly.
No, I mean, I know this sounds stupid and ridiculous, but you just don't do that.
All right.
But you do when you're driving. I mean, it's not like, do I drive here? Don't I drive here? No, you're in your lane, and you, at minimum, just follow the lane that you're on, unless you realize that you have to take an exit and go somewhere else, or make a turn and go somewhere else.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. Decisiveness plays a big role in driving, for sure. Like a huge role, like at every stop sign or every light.
At every stop sign, I decide I'm going to just go straight through. I don't care. I'm decisive.
I'm very decisive. Yeah.
I won't go through every stop sign at 90 miles an hour.
I get there. Yeah.
I've been doing this every day of my short life.
Oh my god. Yeah, but if you think about, you need to be decisive in your vehicle for the safety of everyone. Like, if you're at a stop sign and both people arrive at the same time, and there's some sort of mix-up, or you don't realize who came first, and no one does, neither person, and then it turns into either a war of
No, you go. Like, no, you go.
Or like one guy just goes.
And then when both people are like this, then everyone's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, right. Exactly. Everyone gets. It's always the other driver's fault. Remember that. That's one of the rules of the road.
It's always the other driver's fault.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't have a driving license, that's not the case. I repeat, that's not the case.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, people would like to. I saw this video of this guy, and it was in like England or London or somewhere where they drove on the other side of the road. And this other guy, to try to get out of traffic, went into the other lane. It was a 2-lane road, and there was a really long line on the right lane coming. And then he went into the left lane, but coming towards the left lane, which would be the right side, which is not how you're supposed to drive there.
You're supposed to drive
on the
left.
And he came into oncoming traffic, and he was like, and they're just sitting. This guy's just sitting there, and his dash cam's on, or his camera or whatever. And he's like pissed off. The other guy's like pissed off. The guy in the wrong lane is like mad at the guy for coming. And the guy won't move. Like, he wanted the other guy to move so he could go. He's like, no, I'm not getting out of your way. You're in the wrong lane. And so the other guy literally gets out of his car and starts like yelling at him, and his girlfriend or whatever has to come pull him back in.
Dude, you're the one on the wrong side of the road.
Yeah, it's just like, people will stick by their bad decisions. If you call, I guess that is wholehearted decisiveness there. Like, all right, I'm not. But yeah, there are times like that where it's like, okay, you need to dial back a little there.
Hold your horses.
Yes. Yeah. Indeed.
Yeah, that also fits the driving metaphor. Before there were cars, there was horses. Of course, horses still exist, but whatever. Yeah. Hold your horses.
Before there were cars, there were these things called horses. They used to roam free until we packed them into the vehicle. About 40, or about 150 horses in one of your little cars, and that's 150 horsepower. That's where all the horses went. They're all they're still around, but yeah, no, that metaphor fits, or that phrase.
Oh, I remember another poem. It went something like, Our cars cause a lot of pollution. It makes the air hard to breathe, I'll admit. But just think if we all still rode horses, all our streets would be knee-deep in shaving cream. Be nice and clean. Shave every day and you'll always look keen.
That's a funny poem. It's an interesting ending. It did catch me by surprise.
You
wasn't
expected something else? Can't imagine why.
Yeah, I know. It's as crazy as that sounds. I was sort of expecting something else. No, but I'm trying to think of other, like, making a decision. It is hard though. Like, some things are a little bit coin flippy, and technically, you can tell that if you had analyzed it further, that you would be able to come to the right decision, or like the quote unquote the most likely to succeed decision. But sometimes in a short time period, you just can't, and sometimes you're forced to. I mean, that's the kind of the worst.
Well, yeah,
and that's when this sort of, like, you have to do it.
Yeah, you have the constraints.
You have to make your decision, and you have to, like, not worry about it. That's one thing, is you can make a decision and still be consciously evaluating if it's the right thing to do, and then you're just going to execute whatever you decided poorly, because you're half your mental space is being taken up questioning that decision. That's not very conducive to,
Exactly.
successful going about of things, and so yeah, it is like there's isn't there an area of study that's dedicated to the like just decision making? I feel like there is.
I mean, I know that lots of people do study decision making, but I don't know that there's like one that is specifically people making decisions.
Yeah, so decision theory is the mathematical study of strategies for optimal decision making between options involving different risks of expectation.
That's math.
Oh. Yeah, well, that's what I meant, I think.
Yeah. Decision theory is math, though. And tell me how many people actually use math when making decisions. I mean, I know Omar Bessa, he has gigantic loads of data and spreadsheets, and he takes a crap ton of data. Yeah. Or at least he comes up with a pretty decent algorithm for coming up with some of his conclusions. I mean, I wrote a program once to tell me what time I needed to leave my house on different days in order to have the least traffic and the best fuel prices and all these other different things. I had it all programmed.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, most people don't do that. So most people use heuristics.
Yeah, heuristics are fun.
And a lot of the time they're really good. Sometimes they're not.
Yeah, well, for sure. Well, StarCraft is a game of heuristics, I'll tell you that. You basically, like, you don't have enough time to sit there and analyze. It's not a turn-based game where you can sit there and analyze every movement and decision you're going to make. So you build a bunch of heuristics by playing a lot and figuring out what people will probably do with with whatever time you're at and whatever units they have. You figure out, and you think of a counter, and or you don't think of it, a counter from your heuristic. And the more you play, the more heuristics you build. Like, you get, okay, they're going to play like this, probably I'm going to do this, etc., etc. But it's not a game of conscious, like, it's not like chess where you're like thinking really hard about a strategy, and thinking moves ahead, and it's there's elements, but it's not turn-based, so you have to use heuristics. And life is not turn-based, really. It doesn't pause for people.
That'd be something if it were. It's like, hold on, Apple, don't do anything while I'm designing my new computer.
Your turn.
Your turn.
My turn, Apple. No. So yeah, in in turn-based circumstances, you have more time to come up with some strategy. But a lot of times heuristics are sort of what you have to lean on to accomplish things, because imagine stepping at every step of the way and evaluating, all right, is this what I should be doing? Is this the correct usage of my time? Like, you'd spend more time wasted thinking about that than you would actually be making decisions. And I think some people, especially smart people, get in a deadlock there, or they sort of just don't make a decision because they can't think of the optimal way to do something, and they're like, what do I do? I don't proceed. So they just stop. I've seen that happen.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that before. I'm like, well, how do I start doing this thing? I was like, well, I don't really know. How do I even start? And then I was like, so I just don't do it. It's like, no, that's not good. You just somehow start, or like, sort of or the situation. The analogy I would use is like too many holes in the boat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like, well, water's coming in from everywhere. Like, yeah, like if you're trying to like fix an issue, like for example, if I was trying to fix how I play StarCraft, and there's like so many problems with how I play.
Just fix
like,
one.
Fix one, right? Exactly.
Preferably the most high yield one.
Yeah, and sometimes you'll just be like, okay, never mind, and stop, because you can't, because there's just so many. But
yeah, and then you don't. But then you don't get to doing anything.
Yeah, then you get the worst outcome, basically the worst possible. And not
no. Worst would be
but
like
not a good one.
The
worst would be like you put a hammer on your hands and like you can't even play anymore, and then you hit your head into the wall so many times that you can't actually think, and then you undownload the StarCraft and break your computer. Yeah, that'd be the worst, or like close to the worst.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, my game's not very good anymore. No. That's why I hate using like that word.
That's
the worst. Or best.
That's the worst.
Any absolutes. Oh god, because I only they're like, oh god, this is the worst. I'm like, is this really the worst?
Is this really the worst?
I can think of a lot of ways how this could get worse than this. But yeah, so yeah, heuristics. It's important to build them. I think like build your own. Use other ones from other people that are good, that are like tried and tested.
Mm-hmm.
And like you can sort of automate your like a lot of like your sort of daily goings abouts that are like sort of mundane and routine, like a heuristic for what how do I get this would be called a habit, but loosely could be like a heuristic of what you're gonna do, like how do you proceed with your morning, with your time, like, okay, brush teeth, take a shower, eat breakfast, do this, do that, get ready, etc., and have like this sort of idea of how you're gonna do something, and then just completely do it over and over again until the heuristic is in your head. Like, it's like, okay, well, it's morning time, so now I'm gonna do this, and you won't be thinking about like kind of the daily maintenance that every human has to do. Like, you won't be spending a lot of mental space doing that. Like laying your outfit out before you go to bed, like what you're gonna wear tomorrow, like putting it out somewhere, and like there's just things you can do to like really like. They can be used in situations that are more high stakes, but just in general in like life, you can use them to like basically automate, sort of quote unquote automate, because you're still doing it, but
Mm-hmm.
but it's not taking enough thought process to actually be considered a decision. Like, you're not making decisions, you're just doing, and that's a good way. Like, that's a way you can get into a state of flow. Like, really, that's that's definitely a good place to be. So yeah, I think it's something to consider and like reflect on your own life and say, like, well, what am I doing? Well, like, what could I improve? What could I speed up? How could I how could I make this better, etc. So yeah, heuristics are great. There's something that I don't know, I don't hear too much on Like in school, for example, and I know this is a bad example because it's school.
Using
No one ever used that word. Like no teachers, no one. There was no like that word was just not used at all. I think I learned it like later. I feel like I mean I was in school when I knew what a heuristic was, but I was like, huh,
Mm-hmm.
they're not really. And we were using heuristics a lot in general. Like there's a lot of. That's what I liked about Calc 2 when I was doing it. Like the integration techniques were kind of like heuristics. It's like, well, it's kind of structured like this, so I'm gonna do this. Oh,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like this is really fun. Like I feel like I'm just expanding my toolbox and figuring out like how to solve these different different types of problems.
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, but and like in the correct, like saying, hey, this is like a heuristic, this is what you do. Like if you like that can like honestly eliminate confusion in teaching when you're teaching something. Like having a frame of mind of what to look at it as, like having a word like, okay, so this is like an exact thing. Like when you're long division is an exact process that you don't really like, there's no like, oh, I wonder if it'll work here. There's no like, oh no, you're gonna be able to divide that using the method. That's something, and I think people have a tendency to look at math as that, like all the time, is that everything is kind of like, oh yeah, you throw it into the algorithm and you do this. Like no, there's often times where those things fail, and you can't actually tell beforehand by looking at it that it's going to fail, unless you're like Euler or or like someone who's really good. Yeah, maybe he could tell, but there's certain things where it's like, all right, I'm going to try this technique on it. I'm going to use this heuristic. It looks kind of like this one, so I'm going to try it. And there's room that's in math, which people don't understand, is there is room for creativity, and this is one of the areas where there's a lot of room. It's like, okay, I'm going to solve it in this way, instead of doing an exact way, but no, yeah. So
more arithmetic kind of things, certainly.
Right, exactly.
I mean, there's some. But I sent you the whole song.
All right.
Or at least all the lyrics. I'm contemplating just shutting off our music for a moment and playing this lovely piece, but I.
Oh my God.
It's awesome. Here, I'll just put the link into the chat box.
Oh my God. There's more?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
There. I put the YouTube video into the chat box.
Shaving cream.
Yes.
Yeah. Indeed.
Shaving cream. Be nice and clean. Shave every day and you'll always look keen.
Oh my God. That's funny. The Nash equilibrium is like that's kind of a decision-making thing, right?
Hmm.
I mean, in essence, it pretty much is. Like, yeah. I need to look into that. I haven't like actually learned it. So let's do it. Taking account.
The difficulty with those sorts of situations, though, is well, if you think about, for example, the Batman movie.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when Joker did whatever Joker did and got a gigantic pile of money and then just set fire to it all?
I never watched it, but I can imagine. Like, that sounds familiar, or that sounds like a Joker thing to do.
Yeah, so everyone expected that he was doing it for the money, but he wasn't doing it for the money. He was doing it just to cause chaos.
Right.
So, yeah, the Nash equilibrium kind of assumes that everybody is playing the same game by ostensibly the same rules and has the same goal in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously one can change the equilibrium by, oh, screw it, I'm not playing this game anymore. And then,
Mm-hmm.
oops.
Right. Let's see. Mm-hmm.
He's out in the clear. He's going all the way. Oh, he stepped on a big pile of shaving cream.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, it's cool stuff. But let's see.
If you'd be interested in reading about Montaigne's curriculum, you could do that.
Sure. Yeah, sure. I would love to.
Here, I'll send you the link here. Between the fall of Rome in the late 5th century and the decline of monarchy in the 18th, secular schooling in any form was hardly a ripple on the societies of Europe. There was talk of it at certain times and places, but it was courtly talk, never very serious. What simple schooling we find was modestly undertaken by religious orders, which usually had no greater ambition than providing a stream of assistance to the ecclesiastical bureaucracy, and perhaps molding the values of whatever future leaders proved susceptible. I love that word. In that context, the few exceptions shouldn't be looked upon as the spark for our own schools. School was only a tiny blip on the radar until the last half of the 18th century. If you and I are to have a productive partnership in this book, John Taylor Gatto saying this, you need to clear your mind of false history. The type that clogs the typical school chronicle written for teacher training institutes where each fact may be verifiable, but the conclusions drawn from them are not. Turn to typical school history and you will learn about the alleged anticipation of our own schools by Comenius, of the reformed Latin grammar school founded by Dean Colet at St. Paul's in London in 1510, of the solitaries of Port Royal, whoever those lonely men may have been. Each instance is real. The direction they lead in is false. What formal school experimentation the West provided touched only a tiny fraction of the population, and rarely those who became social leaders, let alone pioneers of the future. You can disinter proclamations about schooling from Alfred's kingdom or Charlemagne's, but you can't find a scrap of hard evidence that the thing was ever seriously essayed. What talk of schooling occurs is the exclusive property of philosophers, secret societies, and a host of cranks, quacks, and schemers. What you never find anywhere is any popular clamor for a place to dump children called school. Yet, while schooling is conspicuous by its absence, there's no shortage of intelligent commentary about education, a commodity not to be conflated with the lesser term until late in history. Aeneas Silvius Piccolomini, Pope Pius II, in his tract, The Education of Children in 1451, prescribes the reading and study of classical authors, geometry, and arithmetic, for training the mind and assuring rapidity of conceptions. He included history and geography in his recommended curriculum, adding that there is nothing in the world more beautiful than enlightened intelligence. The 16th century is filled with theories of education from men like Erasmus, Rabelais, and Montaigne. French schoolman Gabriel Compère, in his History of Pedagogy, 1885, holds all three in the highest regard. Erasmus, Rabelais, and Montaigne, before pretending to surpass them even at this day, we should rather attempt to overtake them and to equal them in their pedagogical precepts. Like most educated men and women, Erasmus was his own teacher. He assigned politeness an important place in education. The tender mind of the child should love and learn the liberal arts, be taught tact in the conduct of the social life, from the earliest, be accustomed to good behavior based on moral principles, says Erasmus. Montaigne, who actually attended school at Guyenne from the age of 6 until he was 13, bequeathed an image of late 16th century schooling amazingly modern in its particulars. "'Tis the true house of correction of imprisoned youth. Do but come when they are about their lesson, and you shall hear nothing but the outcries of boys under execution, with the thundering noise of their pedagogues, drunk with fury to make up the consort. A pretty way this, to tempt these tender and timorous souls to love their book, with a furious countenance and a rod in hand." Or, in this case now, a riddle. I'm sorry, did I... Oops. I gotta be quiet. Gotta keep my mouth shut. I can't possibly say that. No, school is good. We think school is good. School is great. Ha ha ha, school.
You first sound so genuine.
Yeah. Can't you tell I love school? I think school is the best thing that ever happened to society.
Oh, yeah.
Good. Glad we're on the same page. What Montaigne requires of a student seeking education is the development of sound judgment. If the judgment be not better settled, I would rather have him spend his time at tennis. This is awesome. Montaigne was preoccupied with the training of judgment. He would have history learned so that the facts have context, and historical judgment a bearing on contemporary affairs. This actually sounds a lot like my dad. My dad he said, I think I will feel like I have failed as a parent if you emerge from childhood incapable of making good decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Montaigne says, train judgment. Learn history so the facts have context and historical judgment as bearing on contemporary affairs. He was intrigued by the possibilities of emulation, as were all the classical masters, and so informs us. He said we need to see the difference between teaching where Marcellus died, which is unimportant, and teaching why it was unworthy of his duty that he died there, which has great significance. For Montaigne, learning to judge well and speak well is where education resides. Whatever presents itself to our eyes serves as a sufficient book. The knavery of a page, the blunder of a servant, a table witticism, conversation with men, is wonderfully helpful. So is a visit to foreign lands, to whet and sharpen our wits by rubbing them upon those of others. And in Gargantua, the physician, Rabelais set out a pedagogy quite in harmony with the experience-based curriculum of John Locke. When I started teaching, I was able to transfer principles of Montaigne to my classroom without any difficulty, he says. They proved as useful to me in 1962 as they must have been... Oh, no, this is what's his name? Gatto. They proved as useful to me in 1962 as they must have been to Montaigne in 1562. Wisdom eternally sane. Always cost-free. In contrast, the bloated lists of aims, motivations, and methods the New York City Board of Education supplied me with were worse than useless. Many were dead wrong.
Yeah.
One important bit of evidence that the informal attitude towards schooling was beginning to break up in 17th century New England is found in the Massachusetts School Law of 1647. Legislation attempting to establish a system of schools by government order and providing means to enforce that order. Talk like this had been around for centuries, but this was a significant enactment, coming from a theocratic utopia on the frontier of the known universe. Yet for all the effort of New England Puritan leadership to make its citizenry uniform through schooling and pulpit, one of history's grand ironies is that orderly Anglican Virginia and the heirs of Puritan Massachusetts were the prime makers of a revolution which successfully overthrew the regulated uniformity of Britain. and in neither the startling Declaration of Independence, which set out the motives for this revolution, nor even in the more startling Bill of Rights, in which ordinary people claimed their reward for courageous service, is either the word school or the word education even mentioned. At the nation's founding, nobody thought a school a cause worth going to war for. Nobody thought it a right worth claiming.
Yeah.
Would you believe it? We're finally through chapter 1.
That is a momentous occasion. Yes.
This is an awesome book.
Yeah, really good. He's a great writer. Like, holy crap, really good. And this, he would do well on Quora, I'm sure.
Oh, maybe someone should invite him.
Yeah, I know. I would like to have this guy on Quora. In all honesty. Yeah, I mean, I just when I think about my school experience, it's like you really don't learn much at all, and what you do learn, you learn very slowly. We did basic math, as I said, 3 times in a row. It's like, okay, are we doing this again?
No, the difference is now, instead of working with numbers from 1 to 10, we're going to work with numbers from 1 to 20!
Whoa! No, you're lying, though. Yeah, it's like, I wish I could say there was even that much of a difference. It felt like it was the same exact thing. Do you remember what prime numbers are? And a lot of the kids like, no, we don't. No, come on. We did that. We know what they are. Please. It's not that hard to know what a prime number is now. Yeah, I just can't think of many redeeming qualities. I guess it's free childcare in a way. But like not
state-sponsored babysitting.
Yeah, that's literally it.
It's interesting. That's. I'm picking up on all these sayings that my dad used that I swore I never would. Like there are all these things that I said I'm never going to be like my dad. I'm never going to say these things. I'm never going to do these things. And then, oops.
Apple doesn't fall from the tree as you would think. Yeah, no, I don't know. I'm a whole lot like my dad. Very similar. Like, we have the same personality type. He said that's why it was hard for him to teach me when I was young. It's like, you're too much like me. It's not going to work out. We're both kind of.
Yeah, and you said it also had to do with the fact that he was anticipating all the difficulties that he had were like due to some sort of a deficiency in himself, right?
Right.
So he would assume. Why would he assume that you would be deficient, even though it's there's another word for that. I think it's called gifted. Yeah. There's another word for that. There's another word for that.
Indeed there is. Oh my god. Yeah. No. He wasn't quite aware of. I mean, he didn't know how to teach. He'd never been taught really well, and he didn't know how to set me up to where I would pursue things on my own. And I was an ADD-ass kid who was just running around like a wild man. Probably wasn't ready to sit down and learn. I'd learn all the stuff, at another point. I didn't really need to get it super early. I'd learn it when I wanted to, and if I didn't want to learn it, I wouldn't learn it. That's kind of how my or if I wasn't interested in it, I'm not gonna just be one of those kids like, oh, that's hard, I don't want to do it. I'm not gonna learn. No. But if I didn't value something very much, or okay, I'm not interested in this concept. Even in school, I would skim by with flash memorization, where I just cram it really quickly, and then I get 100% on the test. But then the next day, I would get probably a 50% on the test, because I don't actually know anything. But yeah, I mean, that's beside the point. School sucks. That's the point.
I totally concur with that point.
It's so funny because it's incredibly trite and banal to say that, Um, and yeah, it's like everyone says that, and even like in the stereotype of the people saying that are like the dumb kids, right? They're like the kid, or like the no good, or the doing no good kids who like.
And no one can say that we're the dumb ones.
Yeah, no one can say that. No one can say that.
Not a one. I mean, Chris Langan can.
Yeah, Chris Langan can. Yeah, because he's the smartest guy in the world. Trademark,
Gotta add the TM there.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's interesting that sort of the kids who say school sucks are always like they're characterized, or their caricature is like of them being sort of like
Ne'er-do-well.
and not smart and all this stuff, and it's interesting because it is both sides. I mean, and not even like I think it's everyone. Like, not even. I don't think there's any like even. I think there's like I think the only person who like is enjoying school is like the moderately gifted, maybe like not even moderately gifted, but like between like 120 130. Like I think those people are liking school. From what my experience with it was like they enjoyed school, even though it wasn't the best for them. It was like a place where they like it was like where they were.
Well, they still thrive better than other people do.
Oh yeah,
but they're still, of course, a much better use for good brains.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Anywhere else. Anywhere else.
Literally anywhere else. Yeah. And like you learn any like that assumption. This was one of the biggest like sort of the biggest like kind of not, I wouldn't say revelation, I wouldn't call it that big, but like realization, I'll say that. For me was when I was thinking about school, and it was like a stream or two ago. It was like people, even if there isn't compulsory schooling, will educate themselves. Like people will get educated.
Oh yeah.
And the people who don't those people are not getting anything out of school either anyway. It's like they're probably the kids getting all Fs for no reason. Like the people who are not going to educate themselves and in the meantime or on the outside or find some way to get educated, like it's just, yeah, I mean, people want to get educated. It's important, and people they want to spend time doing things.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to just sit around. Like, it's boring, even if it's relaxing at times. It's boring when in too large a quantity. And they're going to want to learn some stuff. And good parents want to facilitate their child's education in whatever way they can, whether that be apprenticeships, like homeschooling, getting them hooked up with some person they know who could teach them X thing, and then another person who could teach them Y thing. People are going to learn. It's like you can't like stop. Like, how did so much progress happen in the world before schooling, right? Like,
I don't know. It's interesting. The progress happened, and when big amounts of progress happened, mostly due to the fact that you wound up having a nation built on Lockean ideals starting to be free. Then all of a sudden, once we start realizing, oh, things are good, well, now we can waste our time thinking about idiot things like how to homogenize the population.
Right. Exactly. And if there was ever compulsory schooling, I think it would have to only be for basic skills, like very basic. Like, okay, it would be good. Like, it would behoove us for everyone to be able to read. And if some people aren't going to learn how to read at their house, and they're not going to be able to teach themselves or something, like, and that's even a stretch to me, even still. But like, it would have to be for like, okay, well, everyone probably should be able to do this. Okay.
What was it for? But wasn't it that 4 people out of 1,000 when there was no compulsory school attendance in the United States? 4 people out of 1,000 were illiterate. And
Which is like-
illiterate in that context meant does not have the understanding that a grad school student in English would have today.
Yeah, so maybe
That doesn't
that
work.
is-
That doesn't fly.
Yeah, I
that
mean, it wouldn't be.
does not. No.
It doesn't. Yeah, fair.
Not making that concession. No, 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 no.
True. Yeah. So even that. Yeah, even that wouldn't like make much sense.
Four
Yeah,
freaking tenths of a percent of people that can't function in the English language at a graduate school level. And that's going through basically 5th grade.
Yeah.
What gives? What gives?
Yeah, it doesn't-
Seriously.
Right. Exactly.
It's almost like school, whether people realize it or not. Whatever people's intentions are in sending their kids to school, and whatever they think school is going to accomplish, the evidence, the preponderance, pretty much every shred of evidence goes and shows that schooling is not necessary for learning.
No, I can vouch for that. I didn't learn anything in school. Like, I just didn't. Maybe I was introduced to concepts which I then taught myself, but that was it. They're like, oh, here's this thing, and then I learned it, and then I was like, okay, let's move on. And there was no like, I can't remember when I never, and I can say this, like, I don't like using strong words, but I never paid attention in school. Like, really, I never did. There was not one period in my K through 12 career where I even was looking at the board and listening to what the teacher said for any extended period of time. Which is why, I forgot homework a lot. But other than that, I still learned this stuff. I was like, okay, I just start working on the homework when I get it. I wouldn't, the homework would be on the board at the beginning of the at the beginning of the lesson, and then I'd just start doing it, and then I'd finish it. And we'd be halfway through the freaking lesson, and I'm like, oh, God, this sucks, and etc. And sometimes I'd just try to intuit it and try to figure it out for myself. Other times I would just read the book and be like, okay, that makes sense.
You would read. You read.
I would read. I read. Yeah, I know. I did I cheated kind of, right? You're not supposed to read.
You raided. You done readed.
Yeah. Yes. I'm a witch. Burn me at the stake. But what teachers treat kids like me like.
Yeah.
Or
People
some of
that
them.
actually know
There's
what
some
they're
who
doing,
like it. There's others who
Yeah,
really
those-
are like, well,
The bright ones.
yeah.
The good ones.
Right. But school sucks. And yeah, I mean, just doesn't feel like it's like, it really feels like a big waste of 12 13 years or whatever. Which is like a lot of years. You could do so much in that time. So yeah, I mean, sorry, I'm cleaning my keyboard. I don't know. It's just like, to me, it just should be apparent on the surface, right? Like, this should not be some sort of taboo thing. Like, it shouldn't be taboo, or it shouldn't be, out of the norm.
I mean, that's why we're talking about it like this.
Right.
I mean, there's going to be a repository of stuff for people to stumble on at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And the repository is getting bigger every day, because it's not just us that believes this and thinks this. There are plenty of other people that go and say this and probably are complaining to their parents, why do I have to go to school?
Right.
Because you're getting an education.
Right, exactly.
That is an insufficient reason. Try again. I can get an
And then-
education by doing
And
real
then
things.
college is a whole other thing.
But you can
What's
get a good
annoying about
education
college is
in college.
it's like gatekeeping, you know?
Yeah. A lot
really
of it
like
is.
it's kind of like a necessary evil at this point in certain ways.
Mhm.
For people, even if they don't realize, like, you know, how pointless it is, for what it totes to be. Like, you can learn this stuff on your own, most of it, like a really good portion of it, like all of it actually, you can learn on your own.
Well, especially given the nature of information sharing nowadays. I mean,
Yeah,
you
the
know,
internet. What the
you
hell
have
are
the
you not
internet. I
going to
mean,
be able to learn?
you don't have to go to a library. And here in the next decade, I'm going to guess there will be very few people on the face of the world that don't have an internet connection by the end of this by a decade from today.
Oh yeah,
Very few people.
no, indeed.
Which means nobody will have any excuse for not being educated.
Right. Literally. There literally would be no excuse. And yeah, you can literally, like, the internet is, I mean, it's such an incredible resource.
It's our generation's game changer.
Right. It really is. It's a huge game changer. And yeah, you can learn what you need to and what you want. And then when you get a job, you can learn what, you know, you can fill in the gaps with what you needed for that job on the job. Most jobs you get taught on the job. Like,
You have your orientation, your getting acquainted, your probationary period, all that. Yeah.
Yeah. They don't just, okay, you got your degree. All right, do this. This is your role. Okay, figure it out.
And this is going to be your role.
Or they don't just say, hey, here's your job title.
Yeah, this is your role. This is your job title, and you're going to be doing this from now until the day you croak.
Right.
Or until the day you retire. It's like, no, you can't guarantee that'll happen.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, like, if you think about the nature of how jobs work, they don't. In many jobs, you'll be like, wow, most of what I learned in school doesn't really apply here at all.
Yeah.
Innovation. I'm just learning. It's like I'm starting from scratch. So it's just this kind of brute force, like, oh, everyone should know these certain things, and I don't think I mean, as stupid as this may sound, or as ignorant, and my dad probably wouldn't agree with me, I don't think every single person needs to know calculus. Like I like there's certain people who I don't think it will. They're not going to get much out of it, and they're not going to, like, use it in their life.
Possible.
And there's a large percentage of people, I think, who do need it and should know it, and it's important.
Yeah.
And I think at the point, I'm going to posit this. There will be a point if education was allowed to be free, the people who need no calculus would learn it, and the people who didn't wouldn't. It's like a self-filtering system.
Yeah.
Where, like, it's like, well, I want to be an engineer. Well, you're gonna have to learn that. Like, it's like, well, I want to be, you know, a therapist. Okay, you might not need it, and you might in your educational track may be basically, because people have, you know, people always, you know, everyone has 24 hours in a day, and they will be spending it doing something. And if this, you know, say a therapist, whatever, that's what they want to do. This is just a thought experiment. They'll have more time to spend on the things that are useful for them.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing is, you might, you know, a counter argument might be, okay, well, what if they change their mind? Well, then they learn what they needed to, you know. You don't lose your ability to learn.
And it doesn't take as long as school purports to.
Exactly. It's like, well, I want to be an engineer now. Well, now, okay, so just learn some math. Like, you can switch career paths. Okay, now go on the track learning math, etc. This, that, and the other thing.
Yeah. I mean, there are some things that pretty much everyone should know in order to function.
Yes.
But
right.
That stuff
But
is
there's
already
certain-
ubiquitously available.
Yeah, exactly.
Or at least with the internet. I mean, like, it's not going to be hard to find.
Exactly. My dad's like, yeah. He's like, you're not educated if you don't know calculus. And my mom doesn't know calculus. So it's kind of funny that he says that. But
Your mom doesn't know calculus? That's interesting.
she doesn't know. She had an aversion to math.
My mom, I don't think that she knows it now. Yeah, I don't think my mom knows it either.
Yeah, my mom had an aversion to math. She was very smart, but I've noticed this also with gifted people, is that a lot of them like kind of gain aversions to something, and it's really strong,
And
even if they can do it.
And I found them, at least for my mom, it was because of a poor math teacher. For my
Yeah,
wife,
yeah, my mom had bad teachers.
For my wife, it was a poor math teacher.
Yeah.
My wife does. I guarantee she's probably forgotten most of calculus, but she did wind up learning it.
Mm-hmm.
I taught it to her in. Well, she just mentioned offhand when she was over in the States as an exchange student that she was having trouble with math. I was like, okay, well, what are you having trouble with? And we cleared up everything and taught her a year's worth of math in an afternoon. Then she was fine.
Right.
I mean, she didn't remember it after the course was over, but she was fine, and she got through the class and did just perfectly fine, just having learned the stuff in an afternoon.
Yeah.
You can do it in an afternoon. My wife isn't particularly mathematically inclined, and she did it in an afternoon.
Yeah.
Couple pictures, couple formulas, a couple explaining this is what is going on here. This is how the pieces fit together. And whoop-de-doo, we done went through a year of math in a day.
Yeah, my mom had she was not. It was a bad teacher because she got like what, like I think like a 750 on her math SAT at the time.
Okay, so
you can you can say aversion to math and like stuff like that, but obviously there was not. She's like, well, it was fun. That's what she said. She's like, well, I liked that. It was a fun test. I was interested, so she did well.
Yeah, so she didn't have a poop-headed teacher going and ruining for her.
Yeah, exactly. And getting holding over. So yeah, there's no like lack of ability, but it's something I see with gifted people is that like they get some sort of preconception of how a concept is, how a concept works through sort of sort of inadequate pedagogy. A lot of times is sort of the catalyst, and then they just hold that idea very strongly in their head and very convincingly, and then they just sort of just don't ever like they avoid it like the plague, so to speak, right? Like for me, it used to be writing. I really didn't like writing. I thought I was a poor writer. I thought my essays were just bad. I didn't get good grades on essays. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna put no effort into this. So then my ego is saved, right? Because if I didn't put effort into it, when I do poorly, it's like, okay.
Yeah, you have an excuse. You have a legitimate reason. Like, well, if I would have applied myself, I could have done it.
Yeah, and you can. Yeah, and it's a technique I see the gifted people use a lot, as I said in a previous Culling Sacred Cows.
Oh yeah.
It's like this, and it was what one of my answers on Quora when I said we try to preempt cognitive dissonance. That is an example of that.
Yeah.
We're literally just trying to avoid even situations where it can arise, and
that's not healthy. That's not good or healthy for anybody.
You're not going to develop that way at all. Like, how are you going to how are you going to progress that way? Not very well.
No, not at all. But then there needs to be this whole different attitude toward failure, which is yet another thing that I think the school done screws up. School teaches you to be afraid of and hate failure. Failure is not bad. Or there are very few situations, life and death situations, in which failure actually is bad.
Right.
I mean, if someone's life is depending on you succeeding at something and then you fail, well then, oops, that was I guess an actual legitimate problem. But
Mm-hmm.
if people's lives aren't in the balance, and you are just in the process of building and learning and doing and accomplishing, then the path is never straightforward going from A to B.
No.
It's full of setbacks and mistakes and getting derailed and getting back on the rails and making new rails and wondering,
Right.
oh crap, why did I construct the rails going in this direction when it would have been better going there? It is a
Right.
process of learning and discovery. A process. Every single thing that we do is an adventure of sorts. And if you have an explorer's or an adventurer's attitude, and a can-do attitude, a problem-solving attitude, I'm not sure 100% what we're going to come into contact with here. I have a general idea and some plans, but let's go and see what actually happens and adjust on the fly if necessary, kind of an attitude.
Mm-hmm.
It works. But if you don't, well, I mean, worst case scenario is you wind up not even being able to flip hamburgers for the rest of your life because of robots doing that job instead.
Right. Well, and I mean, you can look at what I was thinking of while you were saying this is, like if you've ever watched an AI like learn how to do something,
Oh, yeah.
like okay, we have this AI walk, little like stick figure man, like trying to figure out how to walk a course. Like if you watch their first trials, it's hilarious. Like, and even if you watch them in the middle of the learning process, they're like falling over and they look awkward in the end just by the nature of how they're structured. But like their first trials, they'll just like fall over, like fall to the side, like they're just doing all this horrible stuff,
Yeah.
and then like all the way down the line,
And this
they
circuitry works way better than silicon.
Perfectly execute the the task at hand.
Yeah.
And they only got there through trial and error, like literally
And way
trial
more
and error.
trials than we ever go through.
Yeah, way more
This
than we
works
need to.
better than silicon.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
If we use it. If we use it.
Yes. Exactly. And so yeah, I mean, yeah, just like think of that. Think of that every time you think of that like image of the AI, like it's hilarious. So let me find a YouTube video. It's pretty damn funny to watch.
Mm-hmm.
AI learning to walk. Yeah.
If there's something interesting, just feel free to link it in the chat. I think that you have.
Yeah.
I think that you have the ability to put links in the chat. I don't know.
Yeah, I do it.
Good.
I think so. 1 sec, I'm just. Okay. It's also pretty funny. Okay, so this video.
I'm just going to give you a heads up. In 15 minutes, we're going to have our intermission.
We're gonna go to what intermission?
Yeah, in 15 minutes. In 15,
Right.
we'll have an intermission. Just giving you that heads up.
I suggest going to like 127 of this video and it's just pretty funny to watch.
All right. I'm already
But yeah.
pushing my system CPU to the max, so watching a video is kind of out of the question for me.
Okay, yeah.
But I hope you. But if you.
It's really hilarious.
Did you put the timestamp into the chat as well?
Let's see. It's a 3-minute video, so it's not terrible.
Okay, well, that's not terrible.
127. It's just the humanoid, the emergence of locomotion behaviors in rich environments. So it's like kind of obstacle courses for these local. Oh, this is interesting. It's so hilarious to watch. Like it really like makes me laugh. But you see, like they get better and better. And the AI learns, and you can see this really goofy looking stick figure man running through these obstacle courses and just kind of eating it every once in a while, but it gets better every time. I mean, holy crap, this is like hilarious actually. But yeah, I mean, think of that when you're failing. Just think of yourself as the stick figure man, like doing this weird flip. Just like, okay, gotta try again. And
And I think that that's actually part of what school does, is inculcate a fear of failure.
Oh, yeah, it does. Because if you fail, you're screwed. It hurts. Like, they're like, good grades are good, bad grades are bad, good opportunities in life, good equals good grades, etc. Like, and they like try to like really scare you into getting like some kids cry when they get a B on a test. Like, are you kidding me? Like, what the hell? Oh my god. The comments were disabled for this video. I can't imagine why. But yeah, no, they definitely inculcate a very strong fear of failure because you get screwed over for your failures. You don't like grades matter apparently. Like I don't know why. Like I think you could have essentially, so you'd have like if you wanted to stay within the paradigm of school and not just abolish it completely, which I would vouch for. Essentially, you could have just like standardized tests for each subject, like comprehensive tests, like an AP exam. Not really, maybe not necessarily graded on a curve, but graded on, like maybe there could be a curve grade and then a raw score, so percentile and percentage scores.
That would be very telling and incredibly important because it would actually, rather than only ranking people, you could see exactly how competent somebody is.
Right.
And I would say don't have the government in charge of it.
Right. And if you had schools, you could make them essentially like, okay, so you have curriculum to prepare. You want to do well in this comprehensive exam, etc. Have the kids learn, whatever, teach themselves, ask questions, etc. You're just there to help them out along the way, and they sort of have a defined pathway. So it's like, okay, you need to learn these topics, not necessarily in this order, but you should learn these topics. Here's a suggested order to learn them in. All right, go ahead, go learn them. Here's the book. Here's etc.
Here's
what you need to know.
There's the Khan Academy link if you need it.
Yeah, here's some practice exercises.
There's this thing called Google. Use it.
And we're not going to give you grades. Like your grade gets your standardized test score stands by itself, and essentially
that would be like certification.
Yeah, like
that'd be like free market certification of the quality of one kind of a product, namely the education of a person.
And so kids want to get screwed over for failing. They wouldn't be like, oh God, my grade's going to drop. No. It's like, okay, well, I need to master this still. That test is still there. I still need to learn.
And if the test is administered every 3 months or something, well, then it'd be like, okay, well, I failed. Well, I have another shot at it.
Yeah, I need to learn this stuff, etc. And yeah, you could literally have an education system structured that way, where people would get accreditation through that. And
it'd be
that
so
would
easy.
work. It would be incredibly easy. It would be much less taxing on, like, at least monetarily. Like you just need like worksheets and maybe a teacher who doesn't actually have to teach. They just sit there and help the kids who need help. And
a learning coach.
Yeah, a learning coach, literally. And you could have having a classroom of kids would be good because then the kids who do know things, and only if they wanted to, could help the kids who don't.
Or just don't even have it in a classroom. Have a forum.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's even better.
That was my original idea for school. Yeah, there's forums for people who want to learn woodworking, and they go and they take pictures and share videos on how they do that. What in the world would be different in between having a forum for woodworking and a forum for math or science or literature or history or anything? The basic premise remains the same. You want to do something. Find other people that are better at it than you, or / improving along with you, or that you can drag in the right direction. Associate yourself there with, and then done.
David Sanderson says, education is about learning. Getting good grades is learning. Standardized tests are useful in evaluating a student's strengths and weaknesses, but it doesn't teach them anything. Well, no, in this circumstance, obviously you don't learn anything from a standardized test. But in this circumstance, you would learn by preparing for the standardized test.
And knowing and having very clear
goals, literally.
If you know, okay, I need to be able to do these things in order to get past this person's standardized test, and you could have different testing companies. Nobody says that there needs to be a monopoly on testing. I could start a test making company next week and say, okay, you can take my tests and I will certify that this people will be competent in these things if they get more than this score on the test. And somebody else can say, okay, I'll go make a test for these things. And then somebody else can say, well, I'll make a better test than both of you and drive you out of business. And I'll say, bring it on.
And I'm not commenting on as you say, like the competitive economic point of view. What I'm commenting on now is this is not a foreign structure concept. Like I'm not coming up with something even though to me, when I think of it, I'm like, oh, this is new, like this new idea. Now that I think about it, think of actuaries. How does an actuary become an actuary? Well, they take 2 tests, and then they're an actuary. And then they take more as their career progresses. There's 7 total tests. But you just need to take the first 2, and you can become an actuary. It's literally that's how it's structured. You don't even need a degree, if I'm not wrong. And
you can get Amazon certified as a programmer now too.
Exactly.
So that's a recent thing. I mean, this is the way education is going.
Yes, literally. Teach yourself. Here's a test to prove that you know what you're talking about. Okay.
And it's people that are stuck in the past that aren't going along with it. It's people whose livelihoods are wrapped up in the current / dying educational paradigm that are fighting tooth and nail to keep things the way they are, aka teachers' unions.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Insert any element of competition into the mix, and teachers' unions and bad teachers that comprise these unions are hosed. Completely hosed, because the market will select against them. So of course you wind up having incompetent nincompoops hating the idea that people be ultimately subject to a free market and therefore judged based upon results. And getting the results that they want.
And exactly. And yeah, it would be it'd be interesting to just compare them side by side, like the two, like the contemporary, the one that we're used to, and then just what we just proposed essentially. Hey, have the sort of like the AP tests or whatever, but have a raw score, a percentile and percentage score, and have a set of tests for each subject that you can pass at whatever rate. Like you can take as many as you want and go as fast as you want, and have them on their own, motivated to learn things, not in a classroom. When you have basically control over your own education, I think it goes the best for you. Like I suck dick at learning in a classroom. I struggle to pay attention to the teacher. I'm not good at focusing on whatever someone else is saying. I can't sit still long enough to follow the board and listen to everything. And then when I understand something, I'm very inclined to just look down at my phone or go do something else, because if I already understand it, why would I still be looking at it? But I'm forced to, because everyone's learning it. Everyone's learning in the classroom. So if you understand too quickly, they're not going to just skip ahead. They teach to the lowest common denominator, not the highest. And
they teach the lowest common denominator to be stupid or to be incompetent. People in general are way more competent than school gives them credit for.
Yeah.
School just teaches horrible habits.
Yes, exactly.
School does not teach people to learn. It teaches, some people might teach a little bit about how to learn,
But for me, when I'm motivated to learn something, and I have a goal and I'm interested, I can knock out a whole, in a weekend, I can knock out like a whole math course. Like I Calc 2 in a weekend. Had no idea I could do that sort of thing. because I had never really even gone out to try. And my idea of school had been spending such a long time with all these math courses and calc and calc in school. Calc 1 took took a semester at university, but it took a whole year in high school. And I was like, wow, like, oh shit, what are we even doing in class? Like, this is not. If you're allowed to go at your own pace, it will by default be faster, pretty much.
For almost everybody.
From almost everybody.
And something else,
literally.
yeah. And something else I've noticed is, okay, so a lot of times the easy is made hard and the hard is made easy in school.
Yeah.
So the things the teachers have trouble with, they'll just breeze over and say, okay, this left as an elementary exercise for the student, read it in your book. Because they can't explain it.
Because we don't know how to talk.
And then all the things that they do understand that are asininely easy are the ones that they talk about all the time. So they wind up belaboring all the wrong stuff in class in general, just because that's how incompetent people work. So you'll wind up having maybe people spending a lot more time than would be allocated in a school year for learning certain key concepts, but then breezing through all of the application stuff, or breezing through the stuff that teachers like to hash and rehash and reiterate over and over and over again in multiple weeks over multiple courses, because that's part of what we do. That's the way it is. That's stuff I know, and I'm gonna talk about what I know, and that's it.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I'm trying to think of examples. Well, I have a good. Anytime I'd ask a teacher a question they didn't know, they would just get mad at me. They just get mad, pretty much like I'm attacking their ego or something. And then if you ask them a simple question, they'll explain it. And anytime I asked questions in general, teachers would get they would get aggravated at me. And this is all throughout my educational career, because I was a kid who would do well on tests and stuff. So they're like, well, why is he asking questions? He shouldn't be asking questions. He already gets the stuff. He's taking away space for the kids who don't get. Like, that was like an unconscious attitude that I picked up throughout school. And the first time I figured it out was in 7th grade science, when I asked a question, and the teacher was like visibly mad at me, and it was like a simple question. It wasn't like it wasn't even a difficult question. It was one he could easily answer, and he was like, for some reason didn't expect me to ask that sort of question or something like that. It was weird. But
so
like in general, like, just asking questions, and which is like essential to the learning process, by the way, is sort of like it's not really recommended, or it's like pushed, we're pushed away from doing that sort of thing, which is like sort of really, really negative, obviously. Or if you do ask a question, it better be one that you can read in the textbook and there's already an answer to.
Yeah, in which case it's basically demonstrating somebody's illiteracy.
Yeah. Yeah, literally.
It's like whether whether it's yours or whether it's your teacher's.
Yeah.
Can't know for sure, but.
And yeah, I agree with what you said in response to Dave. Like, no, school will not be able to teach us the necessary tools for or the essential tools for decision making and
the way you do that
solving
is by making decisions and solving problems.
Right. Like, literally.
Those are meta skills that you learn in context.
Prerequisite for that is have a brain and have a problem to tackle. A problem that you want to tackle.
And don't be a quitter.
And don't quit. Yeah, and there you go. That's the necessary tool for problem solving.
Have a brain, have a problem to tackle, and don't quit. That's and maybe have some resources, books.
And I'll answer. I can answer David. I can answer David because he asks, what do you mean by that? Can you specify? And I think I can answer in basically in place of you. I'm pretty sure what you mean is that literally what you need to be a problem solver is not something school can give you at all. Like they can't. Okay, here's your brain. Okay, here's they can give you certain problems within a paradigm, but within their paradigm, but like them not being there doesn't preclude you from doing it on your own. So yeah, you can solve problems and learn how to become a competent problem solver by having a brain and having problems to solve. And school is not going to give you either of those things.
Exactly.
So it's pretty much as simple as that.
I'll put it a little more simply, just for the sake of having it be in the form of a little bit easier soundbite, perhaps.
Right.
Or perhaps I'm just going to go and spin this off and turn it into a 2-hour monologue. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll find out.
But I talk about this in many other aspects too, but I think this has to do with cause and effect. You ultimately have a cause leading to an effect, and good decision making is essentially bringing about the causes necessary to get the effects you want in life. Yeah, that is contingent upon your value system. Okay, what it is you want is contingent upon what it is you value. Those are pretty much the same exact thing. And different people have different systems of values, but that provides the context for where you're doing your work. School has no vested interest, because of who pays for it, to actually have any of their curriculum reflecting reality.
Yeah.
And so, because school is not the real world, the cause and the effect are distorted by the location and the context and the occasion.
Yeah.
If the location and the context and the occasion are actually what it is that matters to you, something that will further you in life in something other than the fictitious realm of, getting your high school diploma or whatever it might be, you will learn. You will have experience on your side teaching you as you go about living. You will not have artificial causes and effects put in front of you, because you're going to be aiming for real effects. Whether they're of a personal nature, like you can go and do theoretical stuff. I'm not saying that it all needs to be practical. But I am just saying that the cause and the effect both need to be relevant to you. And even for people that do well in school and mind their P's and Q's and all the rest of that stuff, they often run into the problem that they need to work in an artificial environment in which everything is already spelled out for them in the same way that school spells things out, because they lack the ability to engage in independent critical thinking, independent problem solving, independent analysis of things. So it's ultimately the people that can extricate themselves from that wind up setting the paradigms. So basically, school takes away your freedom. And the ability to deal well with freedom is ultimately what education is supposed to do.
Oh, yeah. Indeed.
So I did turn it into something way too long. I should have just said, school ain't real. That's the school ain't real life. There's 4 words for you. That's the answer to your question.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's a very nice, succinct way to put the TLDR of that exchange. Yeah.
TLDR. School ain't real life.
And that is the same amount of syllables as TLDR itself. So
yeah.
TLDR.
SARL. SARL.
Yes.
School ain't real.
There you go. That's enough. That's like enough. That honestly, putting it like that is enough to answer quite a few questions. And if I can think of quite a few questions that could just Well, school's not real life.
What's wrong with school?
Um,
School ain't real life.
Yeah, what's wrong with school?
Why doesn't school work? School ain't real life.
Yeah, why do right? Why do college grads struggle with with practical things right out of
School ain't real life.
real life? There's there's yes. There's like a million questions you can answer with that. And if you think of other learning, I'm gonna think a little bit while I say this. If you think of, I'll just let my NE take it.
Go ahead. Have at it. After what you say, and if it's appropriate to respond, I'll do that. But after this, after this general line of thought, I think that we'll take our
intermission. If I think about other, not contemporary, not necessarily contemporary, maybe there are some, but sort of the modalities of learning that were used all throughout history, right? Like before school, etc., preschool type things.
So basically before the late 18th century or so.
Yes. So when I think of like apprenticeships, that sort of thing, they tend to be simulations of the job that you're doing, or literally the job that you're doing, but you slowly get more responsibility as you progress through your apprenticeship. As you learn more, you can be, until finally until finally you're literally doing the job and you're ready. You don't need your you don't need your guy, the master anymore, or whatever. What is it called? Apprentice and
Master and apprentice, or
master and apprentice. Okay.
Yeah.
That's why it just felt weird to say master. But yeah, you don't need that person anymore because you literally can do the job now, and then you're good. Your apprenticeship is over. You're now a carpenter, etc., or something.
A doctor. You are now a surgeon.
It was these other, these things that the old way of going about things. It started as sort of a watered down simulation, and then as time increased, as time on task increased, it slowly converged. The model slowly converged until it literally is the job. Like it got closer and closer to what the job actually is. The simulation was in parallel originally, and then and now it's the same thing. Those are the same thing. Well, more like.
Well, if you think about parents teaching their children, it's not even a simulation converging. Just giving little bits and pieces of the simulation and having them participate.
Mm-hmm.
Observe, and then, okay, I think you can participate here. Okay,
exactly.
well now you'll participate there. So the simulation never actually diverges from reality.
Right.
It's like what kind of an idiot parent? I'm sorry, this is probably a little harsh, because people actually do wind up teaching these sorts of things wrong. All right, what kind of an idiot teacher would teach parents this? Okay, my daughter saw my wife hanging laundry. And so she went and asked my wife to hang the laundry. Now, she was about a year old at that point or something. So my wife, what did she do? She gave her laundry to hang. Or rather, at the beginning, my daughter was reaching into the basket and giving an article of clothing at a time. Okay, Mommy asked for the jeans. Okay, I'll get the jeans. Mommy asked for socks. I'll get the socks. And just doing that. Right? There's nothing not real about that. Then she got interested in doing the dishes. So what do? You put her in front of a sink full of dishes and let her, maybe fix some of her mistakes and prevent her from going, dropping stuff on the floor or making a huge water mess, but just basically be there and supervise her doing the dishes. Now she's wanting to, she's been wanting to sweep the floor. You don't give her a clean floor to sweep. She'll recognize it's insignificant and realize that there's no sweeping to be done.
Mm-hmm.
But if she wants to sweep a floor, then let her take the broom. Oops. Then let her take the broom and sweep the floor. Oh, I'm such an abusive parent. I'm making my kid... No, I'm not making my kid hang the laundry, do the dishes, sweep the floor, use the vacuum cleaner, or do anything else around the house. I'm not making her do anything. It is out of her own volition.
Yeah. And
So, what's the difference in between that and giving a knife and saying to somebody and saying, okay, make an incision here. Okay, you've made one incision. Now I'm going to continue the surgery.
Yeah.
And then next time, oh, well, you get to make this one and the next one.
Yeah.
And just build it up.
Right. Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
not
And
hard.
that's and that's sort of the point, is that good, great pedagogy is sort of it's sort of contingent upon how well does it prepare people for the real thing. And the best way to do that is by being as close to the real thing as possible, with and then incrementally getting closer and closer to the exact real thing, all the tasks involved with it, until it is literally, you're doing the tasks now. We don't need to be here anymore. The teaching is done. Like you can do all of it now. That's literally, and in schools, nothing like that at all. It's hermetic. It's completely separate. It's really, like, you learn some skills that I guess carry over, but like you would learn those anyway on the job. It's quicker.
Yeah.
So doesn't make much sense.
Well, on that note, let's go and have our intermission.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to,
Sure.
before we do anything, I'm going to have to remember to actually get rid of our noise, leave the music on, get rid of our voices, and then switch over to our intermission screen, and see you guys in 8 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Right, well, we're back.
We be back.
We is back.
All right, we can talk about Bob's point. So he says, I don't see why there is so little ambition in schools, judging from my observations. I mean, there's some competition. Schools get paid per student. Wouldn't schools aspire to be attractive? Well, the thing is, schools don't. First and foremost, I'm gonna go through maybe a few points here, but the first one that comes to mind is that the competition for schools is sort of like it's sort of pseudo competition in the fact that like they're not really competing for people because it's like a government mandated thing, right?
Government run,
So,
government mandated, government employees at every conceivable level.
Kids, yeah.
And the funding
And
for schools, I mean, the teachers. Yeah. I'm sorry, please do continue.
No. Okay, I'll just say, like, kids are forced to go. Like, so they're going to go what's closest to them and most convenient. Like, when you're forced to do something, like, and this is something that might be true that I'm going to say. When you're forced to do something, I feel like a lot of the enjoyment with, for example, when I, if you want to go, if I want to, for example, buy food, right? Or not buy food, I want to buy, raw materials to make my own food. I want to make it, I want to, okay, what do I want to eat tonight? I'm going to get so I'm going to do this tonight. Because my parents are gone. I'm like, wow, what I could make like anything I want. I'm going to find something I want to make and I'm going to enjoy it. But for example, if my parents are like, all right, Steven, you have to make dinner tonight. I feel like that alone takes at least a little bit of the joy of making a decision and figuring something out for yourself. It's like, wow, well, I have to do this. It's sort of like, okay, I'll just go to this one. Like, you don't spend as much time just because it feels like part of the decision is, it just feels like less of the power of you making a decision is in your hands at that point. Freedom. And so I feel like the competitive aspect that's may possibly arise, but again, as Matt says, it's government run, government mandated. You're not going to get teachers. I mean, I think their salaries are fixed. I don't think they're motivated to, get more students and all this stuff. And it's since all of it's up top.
And ultimately dealing in a paradigm that denies the value of freedom.
Yeah,
throws everything else off balance.
Right, and as I was saying, the decisions being made within a paradigm that is sort of devoid of freedom are not as they're not as excited basically or enthusiastic as a decision made. Like, all right, literally this example is some psychological tendency, I'm sure, but like for me, like, if I'm alone and I have the freedom to do what I want and I make a decision to do something, it's much more rewarding than being forced to do something and then doing it and like, okay, I'll pick this, I guess.
I think that the opposite of that is called reaction formation, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm really terrible with psychological
It's called what?
Reaction formation. Basically, if someone else tells you to do something, that automatic knee-jerk reaction of, no, I ain't going to do it.
Yep, that is me.
I think that Freud called that reaction formation, but I may be wrong with that.
Yeah, no, exactly. But it's not fun.
With the understanding that freedom is choice. Whoever's making the choices has the freedom. So if someone else is making choices regarding the education of myself or my children, well, what am I supposed to do at that point? Especially if they have the legal ability to show up at my doorstep and confiscate my kids if I don't acquiesce to their request. That does not lend itself to things working out right.
Right.
Compulsory school attendance, compulsory education, compulsory anything will not, in the end, for everyone in the long-term work out as well as voluntary. And I know that it may seem like we're side-skirting the issue, but the whole fact of the matter is, it depends largely upon the attitude that people bring to the table when they're going to school or when they're talking about their children's education or for the community, because you wind up having the same kinds of human beings in and out of government that have the same kind of selfish needs.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as human beings are in it, you know, but the decisions are made increasingly further and further down the chain away from the people who they actually personally affect, the worse the result is inevitably going to be.
Yeah, exactly.
So with the question is asking, I don't see why there's so little ambition in schools, meaning there is competition. Well, the competition is the wrong kind of competition. The giving. What is the what's the saying? One volunteer is worth 10 forced men.
One volunteer is worth what?
10 forced men.
Yeah.
So
There you go.
if the
I didn't know
paradigm
that.
is completely wrong, then that goes and gets quite screwed up.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that sufficiently covers Bob's question.
Yeah, and we don't need to talk necessarily about Chris Langan because I don't want to be.
No.
I don't want to be throwing poo. And that is
No.
essentially all that I am currently in the frame of mind to be able to do. I I might have my own reactions formed to things that Chris Langan may have said about me that would perhaps cause me to be a little bit jaded, and I don't want to necessarily give him an unfair assessment.
Well, what's funny? What I can comment on Chris Lang, since I'm sort of a neutral, is he uses fallacies in a way that, like, for him and against, like he uses the same fallacy like in a contradicting way, like argument, like for example,
Exactly.
like from authority, argument from authority. He'll use that for himself to help himself, since the
Because he
media
has a high IQ, but then going,
yeah.
Mhm.
Because the media has given him accolades, etc., for that sort of thing. And then he'll go and renounce, like, oh, well, I didn't go to college, sort of thing, and college sucks, argument against authority, sort of.
So if someone were to, hypothetically speaking, have an equivalent IQ and greater education, that would, on his own basis, the basis that he has chosen to make his claims, decrease their credibility.
Yeah.
Makes sense as to why someone might throw poo.
Yeah.
Hypothetically speaking.
Indeed. And, essentially, yeah, I mean, we can leave it at that, honestly. Like, yeah. I don't know. You guys can look at the exchange on Quorum.
Yeah, you guys can look at that if you like. It's interesting because both Chris Langan's and my answers got collapsed.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there's just everyone else's answers that don't have anything to do with the actual question. They're the only ones that are left up.
That's really weird. They delete both of the people.
Yeah, well, it's probably because both of the people say we're not going to do it. Basically, my price is too high, and Chris Langan's just like, screw me. Meaning me, not him.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny because, he's, well, I'll firstly admit that I did say the CTMU is a farce, right? And that's very strong language. That's very strong language, and I would need to be able to substantiate that claim. And I would say that the actual CTMU isn't so much a farce as it is a particular paradigm that wasn't necessarily constructed. Chris Langan purports, or back up. Okay, so Chris Langan is essentially saying that it explains the universe, or at least logic, but it doesn't necessarily explain reality. And one of its very first precepts shows it to be incongruous with reality. So the thing that I find that makes it a farce is because all you really have to do is you don't have to even go too deep until you start finding, difficulties and problems and issues with it. And yet people jump on it and treat Chris Langan as almost a cult figure. So I think that more of the culture surrounding the CTMU is the farce, and the CTMU just happens to be, it is what it is, and I'm not going to waste my time picking through it once I've already ascertained that it's false. That's all. That is all it is, and the only way that you're going to convince me to pick through it is if you pay me. That's that, and if I were to have phrased it that way, perhaps Chris Langan wouldn't have taken it to be so abrasive. Now, granted, he did act like a complete and total jerk toward me.
Indeed.
In return, or maybe even before he read my answer. But I'm not responsible for what he said. And I think that at least I could clarify my position a little bit more.
The comment thread was interesting.
Oh.
I don't know. He sort of got.
Oh, he came unglued.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't. He sort of got. I
mean, but no. It wouldn't be like any Clash of the Titans debating with him. No. It wouldn't be anything like that. I don't mean to throw water on the party, but that would not be. Who would be Chris Langan debates Matthew Line? It would be good to watch. That would be. I hate. Yeah, that's what he said. That's what he said. That was the first thing that he said in the comment thread of mine. So, I mean, I never claimed in my answer anything about that.
Yeah, you didn't say anything.
I never said anything.
Well, I mean, it was mainly the comment where you sort of like replied about and sort of summarized what had happened in a way that like basically like in the the little chess match going on, the intellectual chess match, like he lost right there. Like there was nothing he could say back, and so he and right.
But even then, I wasn't as clear as I could have been.
Right. In accordance with that, he didn't reply. He stopped commenting because he had
stopped
nothing
commenting and got his sycophants to collapse my answer.
Yeah.
I mean, that is, and here I am doing an argumentum contra hominem, right? But that's shutting down a conversation when you lose. Or when you even lose ground, is the hallmark of somebody who's selling snake oil. And wants to still perpetuate things, and then wind up having a bunch of sycophants. Like one of his sycophants said something along the lines of,
"Oh God,
what did he say? Laughing. Oh yeah, you're not smart enough to understand what Chris Langan is saying." It's like oh, actually, God. Yes, I am.
It was some like, oh God. Oh, that was hilarious. He had a fedora on, or whatever, or not on. He actually had photoshopped on. But,
Yeah.
he was sort of a. He was kind of a meme. The guy who got. It's kind of funny.
Oh yeah, but yeah. That was no. Just please no. Just no. Okay. I think I'm going to make a rule. Just nothing. Like Quora, me, CTMU do not belong in the same.
No.
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 Just no.
Oh my god. Yeah, and yeah, basically. Oh, poor. It's too funny.
Where can it's
I see you answered the ring for it. All right, let's see. What's on the plate next?
Well, we have about 37 minutes left. So I don't know if like I'm assuming that in this particular page, there you go. Okay. So moving on to bigger and better things. Like Dr. Demento and the shaving cream song.
Yes. That always is.
Or we can
How
go.
can
Hmm?
how does it work to where you can now add links to YouTube? Is it just because you're a moderator, or we're...
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm trying to find a couple Darwin Awards. Here we go. I need to find the good one. Where was it? Where was it? Where was it? They're old Darwin Awards. I think it was from 2003. There were some really good ones. Yeah, it was unsafe and insane. 2003 Darwin Award. Australia. Parents often warn that firecrackers can blow your hand off. But as a 26-year-old Australian learned, they can also remove your gonads from the gene pool. An ambulance rushed to an Illawarra Illawarra Park after receiving reports that a man was hemorrhaging from his behind. The mercifully unidentified man had placed a lit firecracker between the cheeks of his buttocks, stumbled and fell upon it.
Oh, is this Darwin?
Yes. We do caution people against these acts, said Acting Senior Sergeant John Klepsarek of the local police. Emergency surgeon Dr. McCurdle said the resulting wound looked like a war injury. The explosion was forced upward, blasted a great hole in the pelvis, ruptured the urethra, and injured muscles, rendering the man incontinent as well as sexually dysfunctional. He survived to tell the tale, making him eligible for the dubious honor of a living Darwin Award.
Oh my god, the Darwin Awards are hilarious. He just set off a firework in his ass. Is that it?
Set off a firework in his ass, tripped, fell, and had the firework jammed up in his.
Oh,
when it blew up.
that is so. That's so painful sounding. Jesus.
He blew his balls off, and then a great deal of his lower abdomen.
That is.
So, dear viewers, if you do care about propagating your genetic material, don't do that.
As my dad would say, don't do that.
Don't do that.
That's all. Anytime I spill milk or something, he's like, don't do that. I'm like, Dad, thank you for that great advice. If I didn't have you here, I would just be spilling milk on purpose all the time. That's funny. That's a good thing. Be sarcastic with your yeah, and look, here's in the chat. I don't want to try to pronounce his name because I'm horrendous at that. But wow. Langan pulling the I'm famous and you're not, therefore you should shut up card, exactly.
Yeah. Was that in the chat?
Yes.
Yeah, in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
Pretty funny.
Yeah, I'm still looking for more Darwin Awards. Who... Oh, here we are. Who would park the car on a busy freeway in heavy fog for a quickie? That's the whole picture. A young couple driving along the Via Dutra, the largest freeway in Brazil with tons of heavy traffic, at 6 a.m. under heavy fog. The couple decided that this was the time to park for dating, according to the charming Google translation. And yes, they parked on the freeway, in the right-hand lane. Not on the shoulder, the median, or at a gas station. Naturally, given time, a cargo truck encountered a speed bump, instantly killing both during the act of procreation. Double Darwin Award. So 2 people making 2 obviously bad decisions, and natural selection acts at the very moment the 2 are reproducing. This is a textbook. Darwin Award. Oh boy.
Oh my god. Oh my gosh. Double darn. Yeah, road rage is an interesting phenomenon. It's really, people forget, they don't realize that they're sort of in these thousands of pounds killing machines. This is not even dealing with this Darwin necessarily, because these guys are just obviously dumb. Start fighting in the road. And essentially, it's interesting to see how worked up some people can get over like some traffic thing, like, and it's really essentially, it really illuminates the phenomena, like the sort of the victim blaming thing in psychology, or like anytime someone else makes any sort of mistake on the road, regardless of how like small it is, like people sometimes will get really pissed at that and like really like flip someone off, and all this like they're, you know, because they're behind the safety of their own car, right? Like no one's gonna come actually do something, or very unlikely. And like it's like, really, like, are you like really that mad that someone like, you know, pulled out in front of you like slightly accidentally, or like that someone was a little bit too slow to do something, etc. Like people get so like worked up in their cars. It's really interesting.
Oh yeah.
And like I got flipped off, for example, the other day. I merged into a lane. Okay, so it's like, you know, there's a, you know, essentially it was a 2-lane road, and I was coming perpendicular to it, right? So on a road, and then I'm, you know, gonna turn and like kind of like a curve, like right in there. But it's 2 lanes, and I'm coming into the right lane. This guy was in the left lane. I could see that, so I could still merge at the same time he's driving, because there's a right lane still. So I merged into the right lane next to him while he's in the left lane, and he like honks and like then like flips me off. I'm like, I wasn't going into your lane. I wasn't impeding you. You didn't have a signal. You weren't going in. What's the deal? Like what happened? I'm so confused why you're mad. Apparently he was just, I don't know, dumb and didn't know how the road worked. But like what, like, it's like, is that worth like, you know, flipping someone off over? Like, are you really that? It's like, come on, dude. And when they flip you off, you just give them a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you can be like,
yeah, exactly. There you go.
there's all the fingers you're missing, dude.
There you go. Yeah.
Woo! Actually, no,
rock on, bro. Yeah. Oh man, yeah. Let's see.
About the road rage, though, it's interesting because things escalate. Really, really badly, things can escalate.
Yeah, as you can see here, they literally died over some stupid stuff. Like, people are incredibly I don't know, like mercurial in that sense. Like, they change, you know, okay, suddenly I'm gonna just you know, I will go from being peaceful, and then something wrong happens, and suddenly I'm just pissed, and now we're fighting, and now we're, you know, dead in the road. And it's like, well, was it really worth it? Well, you know, obviously not. No. It's one of those old sayings, right? Like, think before you speak. Or no. Just think before you do anything, I think. It's something.
Think before you ram someone with a car. Think before you pull a gun on another person. Think before you shoot someone with a... Think before you go and chase him with a baseball. Think!
Yeah. Yeah, just think a little. And...
Oh, that's like Mr. Rogers. What do you do with the mad that you feel when you feel so mad you could bite? When the whole wide world seems oh so wrong, and nothing you do seems very right. What do you do? Do you punch a motorist? No, wait. That's not how it goes. Do you punch a bag? Do you pound some clay or some dough? Do you round up friends for a game of tag? Or see how fast you go? It's good to be able to stop when you've planned a thing that's wrong and be able to do something else instead and think. This song, I can stop when I want to, can stop when I wish, can stop anytime. And what a good feeling to feel like this and know that the feeling is really mine. Know that there's something deep inside. I can't remember the words, but I haven't heard this song in ages. I need to look at the words for that.
But yeah, if you're mad, like take a second to cool down. Like it's basic emotional regulation that everyone should be equipped with.
Yeah, Mr. Rogers even sang a song about it.
And that's when you know. That's when you know it's important and it needs to be done. If Mr. Rogers is singing a song,
Where is it? Oh yeah.
No, but like it's interesting that like so many adults are just not equipped with that skill at all.
Oh,
they just sort of
this is so politically incorrect. This is so politically incorrect. Know that there's something deep inside that helps us become what we can. For a girl can be someday a woman, and a boy can be someday a man.
Oh, that's... Did you just assume they're...
Yeah.
I'll stop there.
Yeah, but that is actually... I went and looked at the lyrics. That is the rest of the song.
Yeah. No. Emotional regulation is something that is sort of really necessary.
Did you read David Sanderson's
Yes.
essay? It's awesome. Oh boy.
Yes. It will be. And then all the you know, I don't know, how can you facilitate that sounds bad, but how can you facilitate the Darwin Awards, right? Or like just the Darwins in general, like, you know, can you have some sort of contest and be like, if you had a Darwin Award contest, competing in it would be warrant a Darwin Award by itself.
That in and of itself says, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And maybe it would be expedient right now. Anyway.
Well, apparently.
The Darwin Awards are funny. My dad always, ever since I was little, always quoted. He would use that a lot. He's like, well, if anytime you heard about something stupid someone was doing, he's like, oh, yeah.
Sounds like he's trying to get
the
the Darwin Award.
He's like, yeah. He's like, oh, looks like they're gunning for the next Darwin Award. They're competing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, I see they're in the race for the Darwin Award, and it was like a run. It was something my dad has always said throughout my life. I have sort of. It would always be like in the car or something, and someone would do something. He's like, oh, they're trying to get a Darwin.
Oh yeah.
So I had an early introduction to this sort of thing. It's pretty funny stuff. I like it though, man. And it's good that they exist. Like, it is like, hey, look what could happen. Like, think. And they're funny. They're hilarious. I feel like a lot of people would be like, well, people are dying. It's like, well, yeah, and there's a reason. This is I don't know. I wonder if the Darwin Awards have ever been met with any sort of like, hey, that's bad, don't do that.
Here we are. This is an at-risk survivor. So this is somebody that failed at getting a Darwin Award. This is called, the title is, and this is one of my favorites. I'll put it in the chat at the risk of being very inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
No, I haven't watched. But I'll read this one in the meantime. One morning I was called to the emergency room by the head ER nurse. She directed me to a patient who had refused to describe his problem other than to say that he needed a doctor who took care of men's troubles. The patient, about 40, was pale, febrile, and obviously uncomfortable, and had little to say as he gingerly opened his trousers to expose a bit of angry red and black and blue scrotal skin.
Oh.
After I asked the nurse to leave us, the patient permitted me to remove his trousers, shorts, and 2 or 3 yards of foul-smelling stained gauze wrapped around his scrotum, which was swollen to twice the size of a grapefruit and extremely tender.
Oh.
A jagged zigzag laceration oozing pus and blood extended down the left scrotum. Amid the matted hair, edematous skin, and various exudates, I saw some half-buried dark linear objects and asked the patient what they were. Several days earlier, he replied, he had injured himself in the machine shop where he worked, and had closed the laceration himself with a heavy-duty stapling gun. The dark objects were 1-inch staples of the type used in putting up wallboard. We x-rayed the patient's scrotum to locate the staples, admitting him to the hospital, and gave him tetanus antitoxin, a broad-spectrum antibacterial therapy, and hexachlorophene sitz baths prior to surgery the next morning. The procedure consisted of exploration and debridement of the left side of the scrotal pouch. 8 rusty staples were retrieved, and the skin edges were trimmed and freshened. The left testis had been avulsed and was missing. The stump of the spermatic cord was recovered at the inguinal canal, debrided and the vessels ligated properly, though not much of a hematoma was present. Through and through, Penrose drains were sutured loosely in sight, and the skin was loosely closed. Convalescence was uneventful, and before his release from the hospital less than a week later, the patient confided the rest of his story to me. An unmarried loner, he usually didn't leave the machine shop at lunchtime with his co-workers. Finding himself alone, he had begun the regular practice of masturbating by holding his penis against the canvas drive belt of a large floor-based piece of running machinery. One day, as he approached orgasm, he lost his concentration and leaned too close to the belt. When his scrotum suddenly became caught between the pulley wheel and the drive belt, he was thrown into the air and landed a few feet away. Unaware that he had lost his left testis, and perhaps too stunned to feel much pain, he stapled the wound closed and resumed work. I can only assume he abandoned this method of self-gratification.
Oh my god. Oh my god. That was so painful to listen to. Oh god.
Yeah, but unfortunately, he still has a nut.
Oh no. If only it was both.
Woohoo!
God, that is just awful to listen to. Oh god. Duh. I really like. Oh my god, that's like I can't. That just sounds so painful. I feel like I'm vicariously experiencing it.
Isn't it kind of funny? People say I'd give my left nut for something.
People say what?
Don't people say I'd give my left nut for X?
Do people say?
Yeah, or at least it's a saying where I'm from.
I think I have heard that phrase. It's not very common where I'm from, but maybe I've heard it once or twice because it is vaguely familiar.
I'd give my left nut for that opportunity.
Yeah, it's like, well, would you give your left nut to, masturbate with a machine? Maybe not.
It's like that,
God, that's
horrible.
Yeah.
It's just
That is.
got his left testis stuck in the. Oh, launching him into the air. It's just. That's just so painful. It sounds so painful.
Yeah, no. I mean, and then stapling it with those fucking
With no,
yeah.
no.
It's already bruised and tender. Like stapling it. It like this makes me like feel it. I'm like, oh my god, this is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's absolutely awful.
You got a better note to end this stream on than that?
Let me see.
More Darwin Awards.
Let's see. I'm looking at some other ones.
Oh boy. Darwin Awards are amazing.
Okay. Zame Cosnam spotted a 12-foot reticulated python dozing on the side of the road. That sizable snake is
that
worth
sounds
money.
like a really great start.
The 35-year-old's prepared for this windfall with gloves and a sickle. Sweet success. Swiftly was won the first round. Oh wait, Swiftly was the first round won. And triumphantly, Zame held the reptile's head high as he transported it home by motorbike. Picture that crazy scene. Swinging in the air, the displeased captive made a countermove and wrapped his body round and round its captor, constricting in self-defense. Zame swerved off the road, and results of round 2 became apparent to passers-by the next morning. They killed the 3.5-meter snake to free the man's body, and postmortem confirmed his death by strangulation.
That ain't good.
Wow.
It's just dumb.
Oh my
It's
god.
so dumb.
Yeah.
Like, why would anyone... I remember being little. I remember being... Not too little, but, little enough. And my brother and I, we would read Darwin Awards. That was actually part of our entertainment. We would read Darwin Awards, and we would eat boiled eggs. We would read Darwin Awards and eat boiled eggs. If I'm not conflating two memories with each other.
Mm-hmm. Oh gosh. That sounds fun though. Like it sounds like a good.
See,
I would love. I wish I knew about them, but I never read them.
That's what we did for breakfast. Darwin Awards over breakfast. Inspirations for what not to do with our day.
Yeah, there you go.
It's like in case we're really, really lacking ideas of something to do, just don't do this.
There you go. We'll do it by induction.
Oh boy. Oh.
Or by deduction. Let's see.
I'm getting some idea of where not to aim. Make you feel smart. I know what not to do. Oh, yes. Oh boy.
A spiritual magician died in accidentally steaming himself to death in a stainless steel wok while performing a ritual to cleanse the body and soul. Mr. Lim Bob.
He steamed himself to death in a wok? I think I read this,
known
actually.
Professionally as Black Dog. Had been performing human steaming for more than a decade despite family objections. The 68-year-old guru sat in lotus position in the giant stainless steel steamer, and rice, sweet corn, and vegetarian buns were placed alongside to also be steamed. Black Dog clasped his hands in prayer as the lid was lowered over him and a fire was lit under the wok. But after 30 minutes, this steamy scenario went wrong. Devotees heard the magician knocking frantically from inside the steamer. The lid was raised and Lim was found unconscious, steam billowing around him. Suffering from major second-degree burns, the man died of a heart attack. God. Okay.
Get me out of here!
Yeah, okay, what the hell? Oh, yeah.
Like, if people are courting death,
Yeah.
like sometimes you wish there was something you could do, and other times just like, what could anyone do if somebody seems that intent on killing himself in the dumbest possible way? What can one do?
Here's an honorable mention.
Oh no.
9 tourists, a hotel room, a mail delivery of a plain package from a foreign country containing a mysterious white powder labeled Scoop. What would you do with the mystery powder? No one had ordered the substance delivery from New York, and no one knew what Scoop was, yet they decided it might be cocaine.
No.
The nine tourist backpackers divided the powder equitably into 9 small lines and did something crazy. They snorted it. Professor Steve Alsop said, "When you don't know what's in a drug, that will significantly increase the risk." Words to remember. Hallucinations started straight away. Faces felt like they were melting off, and within 10 minutes, most were unconscious. Authorities arrived to find bodies everywhere, senseless or suffering seizures. Apparently, it was quite a sight. 7 men and 2 women were sent to 3 different medical facilities for emergency care. That mysterious white powder, delivered by surprise to the residents, was scopolamine, also known as hyoscine. The drug is produced from plants of the nightshade family and used to treat motion sickness and post-operative nausea and vomiting. It is also used in crime to lower the ability of a victim to resist criminal aggression. The 6 snorters were released from hospital the next day. But, oh god! But they were at risk. 2018 at-risk survivor. Just snorted,
I think I read the actual news story behind that. I'm pretty sure this sounds familiar to me.
Interesting. Honorable mention: shit a brick. Oh my god.
Oh no. Well, if it's good, we'll end the stream on that note.
Yeah,
if not, we'll just wait until we find another one.
Oh my god. Monumentally incredible stupidity verified in a respected medical journal. A 20-year-old man arrived at the emergency room complaining of rectal pain. Abdominal films revealed a radiopaque object in the lower rectum. A spherical radiolucency was noted in the upper pole of the mass. Upon questioning, the patient said that he had been fooling around with a close friend. After stirring a batch of concrete mix, the patient laid on his back with his feet up the wall while his friend poured the slurry through a funnel into his rectum. What? Under general anesthesia, the mass was delivered without incident. Examination of the specimen revealed a perfect concrete cast of the rectum, measuring 12 by 7 by 5 centimeters and weighing 275 grams. A layer of concrete was chipped into the upper part of the specimen, revealing a white plastic ping pong ball. The radiolucency observed in the abdominal X-ray. The cement was an attempt to retrieve a ping pong ball.
The cement was an attempt to retrieve.
He was going to capture in concrete. What the? Blood alcohol level was negative. No. The attending physician recommended a psychiatric consultation, but the patient declined. Oh my god.
I don't know if that person needed a psychiatric consultation. I don't think he was crazy. I think he was just... I mean, what's the difference in between that and, say, a fraternity pledge?
And a fraternity what?
Like a hazing.
I don't know. This is like... Well, fraternity hazing is like, eh. But this is like...
I mean, if I were to start a fraternity, I mean, there would have to be something serious going on.
Say that again? You're breaking up.
If I were to start a fraternity, there'd have to be something serious going on.
Yeah, this would be good hazing, I guess.
Yeah, just dump concrete up your... Oh. No!
Oh my god. What the hell? To get a ping pong ball. Why was there a ping pong ball in
And why would you think that dumping?
concrete would help? He's like, well, I'll capture it in the concrete, then shit it out. Like, no.
Or you just,
What the hell?
or you just
Shit a
wait.
brick.
Or you could just eat normally and wait for it to.
Oh my god.
I mean,
But really, like, whose friend agrees to do that? All right, let me just get the funnel out. You're upside down. Like, like there's two people agreeing to do this, and two people are like, hey, this is not such a bad
this is
idea.
not a bad idea.
Pour the coffee.
Maybe the other person needs a psychiatric consult too.
Yeah, I think this is a joint thing. Maybe they can get a group rate.
Group. Yeah, we can do group counseling.
Interesting. So this guy says, I knew some people who crushed Tylenol and sniffed it in the back of class. Or paracetamol, which is Tylenol, I'm pretty sure.
Is paracetamol Tylenol? I think that paracetamol is Panadol. I think acetaminophen is Tylenol. But anyhow, people were sniffing paracetamol.
Yeah. And, yeah, so... yeah, people do stupid things in school. They get bored. I used to go high to school, for example. My friend used to trip at school, which is crazy. Because you, like... If anyone has ever tripped before, it's really hard to communicate while it's happening. And... it's really obvious, like your pupils, dilate and it's just not like it's not easy to hide. Like it's really hard to have a normal conversation, like extremely hard. So going to school like that is insane. But yeah, no, people do stupid things. I think sometimes school inspires people to do something stupid just because they're so bored. David Sanderson says apathy, impulsivity, and low intelligence are correlated with the Darwin Award. Well, that's not surprising at all.
Impulsivity. Low intelligence. Uh-huh. Ernie.
Oh.
Or an honorable mention. Well, anyhow, thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you, Stephen, for hanging out and talking about education and Darwin Awards and history and
a lot, yes,
all that other fun stuff. Yeah, this was cathartic for me, and I don't mean cathartic in the intestinal way either. I mean cathartic in the emotional sense.
Yeah, of course.
Intestinal catharsis of a brick. No.
God, I don't even know if that'd be cathartic. I would say that's.
It would need to be like it couldn't be solid like a brick.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, on that lovely note, see ya.
I mean, the only intestinal intestinal. I can only think of like sort of bladder related things if I were to term anything of the body cathartic. That's all I can say. And then on that note.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
May you have catharsis if necessary.
Yes.